I still remember the exact moment my heart turned to stone. It's funny how, after a lifetime of silent sacrifices and swallowing pain, it wasn't some grand betrayal that finally broke me. It was a baby shower invitation. A single embossed card tied with a pale blue ribbon arrived on a Tuesday afternoon and shattered everything I held on to. My name is Elizabeth Harmon. Most people call me Ellie, though my daughter Cassandra Cassie hasn't called me anything at all in nearly 2 years. I live alone in a modest ranch-style house in Deer Creek, Missouri. It's the same home where I raised Cassie and her brother Michael after their father walked out on us. Now the house holds only the soft tick of the hallway clock and the occasional meow from Churchill, my cat, my one loyal companion. The invitation read, "You are cordially invited to celebrate the upcoming arrival of baby boy Reynolds." Hosted by Cassie and James. 2 years of silence, and suddenly this, not a phone call, not a conversation, just a formal invitation to celebrate a grandchild I didn't even know existed. I should have thrown it away, but hope is a stubborn thing. I called Michael first, my son, the eternal peacemaker. He still visited for holidays and birthdays, though always alone, never with Lisa, his wife, or their 2 kids. "You should go, Mom," he said, choosing each word with care. "Cassie talks about you sometimes. Pregnancy has changed her. She's softer." "What does she say?" I asked. "She misses how things used to be," he replied after a pause. I did to remind him that how things used to be meant me working double shifts to keep a roof over our heads, or how I co-signed the loan for her boutique, the one that failed and left me with $40,000 in debt. Instead, I said, I miss her too, and I meant it. I spent $300 I didn't really have on a soft cashmere baby blanket in sky blue. I had my hair done for the first time in months. I bought a dress that covered the weight I had gained from too many nights spent eating ice cream alone. I rehearsed what I would say when I saw her. Not about the past, not about the silence, just how happy I was for her. The baby shower was held at a vineyard about an hour outside town. I recognized a few faces from Cassie's old circle of friends and relatives on James's side. Michael was there too, with Lisa. Cassie was radiant in a white flowing dress, her belly round, her face glowing. She looked straight at me for the first time in years. Her smile wavered. "You came," she said, giving me a quick, stiff hug. "Of course," I replied, trying to hide the trembling in my voice. "You look beautiful." She nodded, eyes darting around the room. "There's food and drinks over there. I need to greet the rest of the guests." And just like that, she was gone, swept away in a sea of well-dressed women. I found a seat near the back and placed my gift on the overflowing table. I asked the waiter for water. I wanted a clear head, no missteps. An hour passed. I made polite small talk with someone who didn't know who I was. I watched as Cassie opened gift after gift, cooing over handmade quilts and tiny onesies. Mine stayed at the bottom of the pile, unopened. Then came the speeches. James spoke first, beaming with pride. Then Lisa, my daughter-in-law, read a poem about motherhood. She didn't once glance my way. Finally, Cassie stood, a hand on her belly. "I want to thank all of you for being here," she said. "Starting a family is scary and beautiful, and I'm grateful for your support." Then she turned, not to me, but to a silver-haired woman in a designer dress, Patricia Reynolds, James's mother. "I especially want to thank someone who has been a guiding light these past few years. Someone who showed me what true motherhood looks like. Patient, understanding, unconditional." My breath caught in my throat. "This is for you, Patricia. You are the woman I wish had raised me, the only grandmother my child will ever know." The room erupted in applause. I did not. No one noticed when I stood up. No one noticed when I left the barn, walked across the gravel path to my car, and sat behind the wheel. I didn't cry. What I felt wasn't sadness. It was something colder, something cleaner, like ice water being poured down my spine. Every slight, every unspoken insult, every time I told myself, "But they're my children," came back in sharp, unbearable clarity. I drove home in silence, the kind that stretches out so long it becomes a second skin. That night, I didn't toss or turn. I made 3 phone calls. The first was to my attorney, asking to make changes to my will. The second call was to Frank Delaney, a private investigator, asking for a favor. The third was to a storage facility across town. By sunrise, I had already packed the first of many boxes. Photo albums, baby books, kindergarten drawings, birthday cards, decades of memories kept like treasures. But I wasn't just a mother anymore. I was something else now. As I loaded the boxes, my phone rang. "Michael, Mum, where did you go yesterday? Cassie was looking for you." The lie came easily. I wasn't feeling well. The drive, the heat. I didn't want to ruin her day. "She wanted to thank you for the blanket," he added. "Said it was really nice." "I'm glad she liked it," I said, my voice soft, neutral. "Listen, Mom. What Cassie said about Patricia, she didn't mean it like that." "Of course," I replied. "I thought those things are exactly what they mean." That conversation was the final seal, the moment I knew there was no going back. Tomorrow I would begin my plan. I had finally learned what they had always known. That love without respect isn't love. It's servitude. And I was done serving. It's exactly 1 week after the baby shower. The first package arrived at Cassie's doorstep. Inside was a single leather-bound binder. On the front, embossed in gold, financial records, Cassandra Reynolds, 2015 to 2023. There was no note, just 8 years' worth of bank statements, receipts, loan agreements, meticulously organized. Every dollar I'd lent her, every bill I'd covered, every last-minute rescue mission. The total, $157,482. That afternoon, as I trimmed my rose bushes, my phone rang. Cassie, her voice came through shrill and sharp. "What the hell is this?" "Hello, Cassandra," I said calmly. "I assume you received my gift. You call this a gift? It's a list of every penny you've ever spent on me. What are you trying to prove?" "I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm simply organizing my affairs." "Are you trying to guilt me over what Patricia said?" "You read the one who stood in front of a room and said she was the mother you wished had raised you," I reminded her. "You know I didn't mean it like that," she said, voice brittle. I was emotional. "Pregnant women say things." "Yes," I replied, still pleasant. "And sometimes those things are exactly what they mean." "So this is revenge," she spat. "You're tallying up what you think I owe you for being my mother." "Not at all. Think of it as a baby gift, a legacy, really. A detailed history of generosity for you to pass down to your son." "You're unbelievable," she said, her voice cracking. "I'm hanging up." "Before you do," I added gently, "you might want to tell Michael to check his mail tomorrow." She hung up, and for the first time in years, I felt weightless. The next day, Michael received his own delivery. It was similar to Cassie's financial records, dates, totals, but it also included something more. Printed emails, texts, conversations between him and Cassie discussing the mum situation. Jokes about my emotional neediness. Warnings to keep their kids away from me. Plans to exclude me quietly without confrontation. Michael, as always, had been sloppy with his passwords. Frank Delaney had done excellent work. His call came in the evening. His voice was quiet, controlled. "Mum, what are you doing?" "Hello, Michael. Did you get something interesting in the mail?" A long pause. "This isn't like you." "No," I asked, truly curious. "What am I like then?" Another pause. "You forgive. You let things go." "Ah," I said. "And how has that worked out for me?" He didn't answer, and for once, I didn't need him to. The next morning, 2 identical manila envelopes arrived at Cassie's and Michael's homes. Inside each was a copy of my new will, dated the day after the baby shower. It was clear, unapologetic. 50% of my estate would go to the local animal shelter where I volunteered. 25% would fund scholarships for single mothers at the nearby community college. The remaining 25% was a trust reserved for any grandchild who chose to contact me after turning 18. There was nothing for Cassie, nothing for Michael. I also included documentation of the irrevocable trust I had set up, one that made it nearly impossible to contest the will. I had learned my lesson thoroughly. Cassie called, screaming. I let it go to voicemail. Michael texted, "We need to talk." I didn't reply. Instead, I prepared the final delivery. This one was heavier, symbolic. 3 large boxes delivered with care, addressed to each of my children. They contained photo albums, baby books, art projects, birthday cards, the evidence that I had been a loving mother. But there was one difference. Everywhere my name had once appeared, Mum, Love, Proud Parent, Ellie Harmon, I had replaced it digitally, permanently. I used the name Patricia Reynolds. Each photo where I had stood proudly beside them first days of school, piano recitals had been edited. My image was carefully removed, replaced with Patricia's elegant silver-haired figure. The woman Cassie had said she wished had raised her. 3 hours later, Cassie appeared at my door, red-eyed, holding one of the altered boxes. Michael followed closely behind. I opened the door, blocking the threshold. "How could you do this?" she demanded. "These were our memories, were they?" I asked calmly. "You seem to prefer Patricia in them." Michael looked around the living room, confused. It had changed. I had taken down all their photos, packed away their knickknacks. The space was clean, orderly, almost sterile. "I honored your words," I said simply. "You declared Patricia your true mother." I made the record match. "This isn't right," Cassie said, voice shaking. "It's manipulative. It's sick, is it?" I asked. "You stood in front of a room of people and erased me with a smile. Was that any different?" Michael tried to interject, his hands raised like a referee. "Mum, what Cassie said was wrong. We both know that. But this is too far." "What's too far, Michael?" "Keeping a record, responding without tears. I don't want apologies. I don't need explanations. I'm not here to be your punching bag or your backup plan." They stared at me like they didn't recognize the woman in front of them. Maybe they didn't. Maybe for the first time they were finally seeing me. Not the mother who gave endlessly, but the woman who had nothing left to give. Cassie dropped the box onto my coffee table with a loud thud. "This is sick," she said, her voice shaking. "You photoshopped our childhood. I honored your reality, your words," I said. "I made our history match the roles you chose for me and for her." Michael stepped in. "Mum, we know Cassie messed up. But this isn't the way." "What is the way, Michael?" Should I have cried in front of everyone? Should I have begged Cassie for respect? Cassie began flipping through the photos. "What do you want from us? Is this supposed to hurt us? Make us feel guilty?" "No, Cassie, not guilt, not even pain. This isn't about emotions anymore. It's about truth, about consequences." Michael ran a hand through his hair. "So what now? You cut us out of your will. You erase yourself from our memories. What's the end game here?" "Nothing," I said. "I want nothing from either of you. That's the point. I've spent decades wanting to be seen, to be included, to matter. I'm done wanting. I'm done hoping. I'm done accepting treatment from you both that I wouldn't tolerate from strangers." Cassie clutched her belly. "So that's it. You're abandoning your own children, your grandchild." I looked at her. "Clear abandonment requires obligation. You've both made it clear. I am nothing more than a placeholder. I'm simply accepting that. The version of me you knew, I said, was a role I played, a mother who gave endlessly without expecting anything in return. That woman no longer exists. There's nothing to fix, I replied. This isn't a punishment. It's a boundary. One I should have set years ago. I walked to the door and opened it. You should go. Michael hesitated. Will you at least think about coming to the funeral for closure? I found my closure 2 years ago, I said, when I finally accepted that the children I raised were not the adults I'd hoped they'd become. They left. I poured a glass of wine and sat on my porch. Churchill curled at my feet. The house was quiet, the peace profound. That night, I slept soundly. No dreams, no regrets. The next day, I changed my phone number. The day after that, I closed all my social media accounts. Within the week, I started volunteering at a literacy center, something I had always wanted to do. My days slowly shifted into new rhythms. Mornings with students, afternoons in the garden, evenings with Churchill and a book. 3 months passed. I planted tulip bulbs, tiny promises waiting for spring. Cassie never called. Michael didn't write. And for once, I didn't wonder why. Then, one quiet afternoon, I received a card in the mail. A birth announcement. Alexander James Reynolds. There was a photo, a red-faced baby wrapped in the cashmere blanket I had bought months ago. On the back, in Cassie's handwriting, your grandson. If you want to meet him, call me. I set the card on the mantel, next to a photo from a recent museum fundraiser. I looked at Alexander's picture. I felt something, not regret, not pain, just a quiet acknowledgement of what could have been. But I didn't call. Some bridges, once burned, should remain ashes. 1 year passed, then 2. I sold the old house and bought a smaller place near the lake. I dated briefly a kind widower named Robert who taught architecture. I heard bits of news through town. Michael had been passed over for partner. Cassie's boutique failed. James filed for divorce and had custody of Alexander. Patricia Reynolds had a sudden stroke and passed away. They were struggling, and yet I felt no need to return. No maternal pull to rescue, to fix, to give. Because I finally understood something I wish I had known all along. That love without boundaries isn't love, it's servitude. I had spent my life teaching my children how to take, but in the end, the most important lesson I ever gave them was how it feels when the giving stops. And whether they learned it or not no longer mattered, because I did. And that, at last, was enough.